Hey everybody, this is Professor Snart. I thought I would provide a little orientation video to our online Honors English 1130 class. So I'm just going to walk us through a couple of the more important pieces of our course menu. I find that one of the most sort of crucial aspects to being a successful student, really, especially online or at least in classes where Blackboard plays a pretty significant part, which obviously ours does, is just the fundamental ability to navigate successfully throughout the various pieces of a course. You may have noticed that most courses don't look all identical, obviously, and so one of the things that I'm really conscious of when I design a class, not even so much the content, but just the physical layout, the design of it, is to make everything as transparent as possible, which means that it doesn't take a lot of work on your part to figure out where things are in terms of what's the work I need to do, what are the expectations, what are the grading guidelines, what are the due dates, the basics for really what you need to know. We need to know for any course. So here's a shot of our class here. You'll be watching this obviously in the announcements section, which is where you land when you come into our course in Blackboard. The orientation video, you'll land in the announcements. You'll watch this in the orientation video area. Obviously, textbook, syllabus information, pretty much stuff that you would expect to find. We use a tool called Remind, which I'll talk about in a more informal announcement that you can check out. Our textbook is an ebook, with information from the publisher website here, and also a reminder that our COD bookstore provides a price match policy, which you might want to look into. There's also other kind of course policy information here, whether it's plagiarism, withdraw, incomplete, just kind of basic course-related things. A note on netiquette, or just sort of being conscious of tone when we don't, especially when we don't have that body language to go by. Course description and goals, accessibility information, all stuff that you can look at in more depth just on your own time. So that's important, but not super challenging or difficult information to work through. I think for my money, the most important two pieces of our course are obviously the due dates, when work is going to be due, and we have a dual due date system that we'll look at in just a second, and obviously the work itself that we'll be doing. You'll see this link to your grades, where obviously you can check your grades as I update things when we complete assignments. A note on the grading itself, so how the grades are distributed, but also kind of grading guidelines, especially for discussion board posts. What's a really good one, what's a kind of mediocre one, and what is not going to really get it done. You can access our email system, the internal system to Blackboard, your student email system. You can see my contact information, and then I also have a virtual office space if we ever wanted to meet virtually or not face-to-face. Clearly face-to-face is still an option for us. Many of us are going to be on campus anyway, but we also have this virtual space. So I'm not in there all the time, or it's not on all the time. So if you wanted to meet virtually, you would still want to send me an email. We can set up a meeting time and then connect that way as well. But again, face-to-face is still completely an option. So just because our class is online doesn't mean we need to do everything online necessarily. There is a piece on getting a library card, which you'll probably need to do. Well, you'll definitely need a card for our course. And even if you've got one, it's a good idea to make sure that it's still active, because it's they do expire after a certain period of time, and you don't really want to find that out at the last minute when you're trying to actually do something from home online. The COD Library homepage, useful resources for us there. Blackboard help, again, sort of the technical side of things. And then you'll see some links that are actually hidden right now, but that will open up as we go through. You'll see some links on my screen that don't show up on yours. They'll open up as we get a little bit deeper into the class. Okay, so really the two most important, though, are our units list here and the due dates. So the units themselves, all of our work is broken down into these unit modules. You can get a sense kind of from the titles what we'll be doing. Obviously introductions to get things going. We move into fiction. We have a section on poetry. So all of the courses open right now. You can look into any of these units, but obviously it's not self-paced. We move through our series of due dates. And in addition to, I think, the importance of having just a clear course layout and having students feel comfortable just navigating the basics of a course, the other thing that I think is really important is for us to feel like we are in fact a class, a community. Maybe especially in the honors environment, where we like to to take advantage of that ability to collaborate and be a little more self-directed in our work. Even if you're working in the context of a group, you're sort of developing ideas as the group. So it's important, and this is why we spend our first unit not really doing the course content so much as just introducing ourselves, that we feel like we are a class. We're not just me, some disembodied thing out there, and then you, an individual who never really interacts with classmates or with me in any meaningful way. That's definitely not what we want to have happening here. So we have all of our units laid out. Again, you can click into any one, but you don't work ahead necessarily, right? We follow the due dates. So all of the due dates are laid out here. You'll notice though that because most of our units, maybe all of them, have some sort of reply function or kind of an interactivity built into them where you're communicating with other classmates or responding to what work they've been doing, we have a dual due date system. So main work or main posts or initial posts will always be due on that one day that's listed. And I've tried to keep it really regular throughout, just so you get into the habit of having that day as the due date. And then because, again, most of our units have like a reply or a response component to them, there's always going to be that secondary due date where replies are due. So initial kind of main work is always going to be due on that first main due date, and then you have some extra time so that we don't have those two due dates the same, and then people, if they're waiting too late, right, you're having to reply just minutes after you've done your main post, and you just don't have enough time to kind of reflect and do that work. So having said that, there's nothing to say that you have to wait until Thursday to complete the work or until Sunday to complete any sort of reply or response work that's built into the unit. Those are outside sort of latest possible due dates. But again, if people are getting work done on Tuesday, Wednesday, it's certainly possible you could go in on the Thursday, for example, and actually do the reply component and complete the work for that unit well in advance of that outside Sunday due date. So it's always important when you're coming into Blackboard to come into our due dates so you obviously know what's right around the corner, but also, right, looking forward to other due dates and other work that we've got coming up. So kind of taking the long view as well. Okay, so I'm going to cut the orientation piece off right here because I think that's basically it. Always checking into the announcements. You'll land at that page, so you'll have access to that stuff. To get things going, you'll obviously want to check out the textbook and syllabus information and maybe check out the grading scheme, the sort of big picture stuff, and then just understanding how we move through our set of due dates, doing the work that's in each of the units. And obviously the work is going to be different in each unit, but you'll see it kind of laid out with some unit objectives so we know kind of what we're talking about here. My contact info will be right there just in case you kind of need it right then and there. Reading assignments, there'll be links to our digital textbook, so it's kind of a nice seamless integration we have. We might have things like reading quizzes, again completed right in Blackboard. Notice that these are open book. The point is not to test your ability to memorize stuff, but just kind of to get you engaged with the works that we're reading. There might be content material that I will often elaborate on in these kind of video announcements. Not exactly lectures, they'll be much more informal than that, but certainly important material for the course. And then you'll often find an assignment. This, a pretty traditional discussion board asking you to do the work. So you'll have, right, your initial post, do that first due date, and then if you can see it down at the bottom here, a reply requirement. Again, due at the latest by that second due date. And you'll notice even for a traditional discussion board, the tool that we use is kind of a standard one, a stock one from Blackboard, but the assignment itself is, like most of them in the course, I hope, meant to be a little bit more creative. In fact, we'll even have the opportunity, once we get a little bit deeper into the course, to do some group work and some even more kind of creative kinds of assignments. So that's one aspect, I think, of the honors version of this that we really want to stress and to emphasize. The collaborative nature. We're still a class. We're still going to get to know each other, and we'll have the opportunity to work with each other, respond to one another's work, all the things that we'd, again, really want to emphasize in a more traditional face-to-face environment. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a nice little orientation to our course, the main pieces that you're going to want to need. You can always be in touch with me. You can find my info here. We can connect virtually or face-to-face if you want. We can email back and forth. If you have questions, concerns, if you see a basic typo or just error in the course, by all means let me know and I'll fix it as soon as I can. But again, it's really important for me that you just feel comfortable navigating the space here, and then it'll make doing the actual work for the course that much easier.